Hey guys, welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I am Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. A preseason game is in the books. The New Orleans Pelicans played the Orlando Magic Tuesday at Smoothie King Center. It was Zion Williamson's first game at Smoothie King Center since December 28th. December 28th. Do you remember what happened that night inside the ball?
Not a clue.
That was the Pelicans' win over the Philadelphia 76ers, where CJ McCollum hit 11 threes. Very vibey night, very fun night. That was one of the high water marks of the Pelicans 22-23 season. Probably like the high water mark was Zion just dropping an atomic bomb on the Phoenix Suns with his 360 windmill dunk. But that might have been like the second highest watermark. I mean, that was a pretty fun night in there. And then 5 days later was when things took a turn for the worse, but it was great to see him back on the floor.
So what you're saying is on December 28th, when we enjoyed that much, we kind of should have known. Like we should have known. Doom was around the corner. That high was too high.
Praying for the best, but expecting the worst. That's life following the New Orleans Pelicans. And unfortunately,
truly.
But you know what? I think we just have to cherish the good moments when they're here.
Yeah, look, you can't watch unless you have a death wish. You can't watch this team any other way because you never know how long. Like it's a precious few moments of joy. You got to grab them while you have them because you never know. The second half of the season, you may have nothing. Who knows?
But hope springs eternal. Hope springs eternal. This is the start of a new season. I am optimistic. I went on TV with Fletcher Mackel and said, I think high 40s, like 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there in terms of wins and where they finished in the Western Conference. I mean, I think I've said many times, they have everything they need to be good. They just have to actually do it. I stand by all that. Here's one of my takeaways from this game. Like the single most important statistic of this Pelican season is how many games Zion Williamson plays, because the guy is so good at basketball. He's not in the greatest of shape or anything yet, and I'm not saying that to bag on him. Like it's okay. He hasn't played since January 2nd. It's been more than 10 months since he's played in a real game. I think he's a guy who is just going to have to kind of play himself into shape. But even when he was sucking wind at different points in this game, he still looked really good to me in his 15 and a half minutes on the floor.
Yeah, it's just nice to see him back out there. Like you go through the whole offseason and we're at a point now where, especially post-extension, you're just sitting there like every week that you don't hear that he's hurt is like a week where you're like, whew, okay, I can breathe. Like we really just wanted to get to this point with everybody as healthy as we can get. Obviously, there are 3 members of our like primary rotation that are still hurt, but Zion's here. He made it to this point. He looked fine. And we've seen this before too, where like he comes in and he's, his conditioning's not where you want it to be for right now. But, like a lot of people and like Coach K, famously shared with this staff, you got to let him play games and he'll work his way into shape. It's just good that we have him now. He's ready to go for the preseason. And even when he's winded, he's better than everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that thing you brought up. So it was comments that Stan Van Gundy made on a podcast in the spring. He basically said, when I got the Pelicans job, I called Coach K and said, tell me about Zion, keys to success. And according to Stan Van Gundy, Coach K told him basically the best way to keep him in shape is to have him play basketball all the time. Like scrimmage him in practice, condition him in practice, let him play in a bunch of games, like use basketball to keep him in shape. And coincidence or not, the healthiest season that Zion Williamson has had in the NBA came under Stan Van Gundy. It was the 2020-2021 season. Zion's second year, 61 games of the 72 the Pelicans played that year, more minutes that season than in any of the other 3 seasons combined. Maybe like I'm not a sports scientist. Maybe a lot of it was luck. Maybe there's something to the idea that, he just like prepared his body to play in a bunch of games in a schedule that was very densely packed. I don't know. What I know is that the old approach wasn't working, so we just have to try something new. And I don't know if it'll be better. I don't know if it'll be the same, but I mean, whatever was happening before wasn't working. So we got to try this thing of we got to practice him and play him as much as possible. I mean, if he's there, and he's not, like, maybe he's dealing with soreness or maybe he is a little bit overweight, we just got to play him anyway.
And it just happens to coincide with the NBA shunning the terms load management. That just happened today. The NBA is no longer pointing to the science of load management as an excuse for players to rest. Put out some information today. So
do you think they're negotiating like a new national rights deal or anything like that right now?
Maybe. It's possible that that's the case. Like first coming through with 65 games mandatory for player awards, and now we don't believe in load management anymore after basically 20 years of, hey, load management's our wonderful explanation for everything since Tim Duncan resting leading up to the playoffs. Look, whatever works. I don't even care to dissect it anymore with Zion. I don't care to have the wild dissertation about, the pounds per square inch on his body and on his legs versus, and I don't care. If he's happy playing basketball and he can work his way into shape, great. Like everything we've done has not worked. So whatever keeps him the happiest, has him playing ball, especially like throttling his minutes and all that. Like he hated all that stuff. He seems good to go right now. He seems very, very intense at the moment. And he looked like he had fun out there. And he kind of sounds like he sounds good. He sounds like he's kind of on a mission. He sounds pissed off. And I do like that a lot more. I have been like very vocally critical of the way Zion presents himself to the media prior to now, with like the jovial nature and kind of the canned answers and stuff. I really always hated it, just because it came off as way over rehearsed. And a lot of people give him a lot of credit for like charisma and stuff. And I never really liked it. Look, I know this isn't going to be fun for you guys, these like short, snippy, like 5-word answers, but that's what I want from him after the years that I've just experienced. So I'm fired up. It's early season. We got a preseason game. We lost. I don't care. After 5 possessions in that game, I pack it up. I didn't even need to see the rest of the game. I saw a dose of Borrego Ball, and I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me that much. I mean, like what he says just doesn't matter to me that much at this point. It's about action at this point. So it doesn't bother me that he's been like a little short in some of the post game stuff. If it's just about what you do on the court. Are you doing the right things to prepare yourself to play basketball? Let's talk about some of the specific things we saw in this game. I thought the biggest takeaway from this game was that Zion Williamson played center. Willie Green went to that look late in the first quarter, rode it for about 5.5 minutes, and I thought the Pelicans looked pretty good with Zion at center in that small ball lineup. They scored 22 points in those 5.5 minutes. I think their lead was like 7 when they went to it. It was 15 by the time they were done with it. It looked extremely dynamic on offense, which I think, is something you could predict. I thought for just one preseason game, I was impressed by the results.
I also like who it happened against. This is a team that has some very versatile bigs. They have, kind of some power forward center tweeners that are very skilled in both directions. So it's really nice to see it successful specifically against that team. There's not slouches over there. It's Wendell Carter, it's Banchero, it's Franz Wagner, it's his brother Mo, who's a psychopath. This is a good set of trees to run that against and see some success and see as like a little bit. It's preseason, obviously. We'll throw that out. We don't take that super seriously, but it's just nice to see that be successful against that group specifically, because seemingly that's the kind of backcourt or the kind of front court you need to be successful against in the NBA now.
Yeah, I mean, the Pelicans played extremely fast when they went small. I mean, it really popped how much space there was for Zion on the interior. I mean, it's like the Pelicans are almost playing 5 out. Like the 4 guys around Zion were all spaced along the 3-point arc, and they like to get him the ball kind of that elbow extended area, like a step or two inside the 3-point line, and let him face up and just say, you get that left hand and, make that layup that you never seem to miss. You cross over. We know what Zion led the NBA in points scored in the paint last year. I think he's an underrated playmaker. He had 5 assists in this game. And I mean, assist, I think it's like an okay stat for like indicative of like your playmaking ability, but like you could just see it with your eyes. It's like he has kind of an advanced playmaking ability for such a big guy. I thought that pass to Jordan Hawkins, cross-court pass, was really nice. Like he could kind of manipulate the defense with his eyes a little bit. Some of the things he does with his body, like there's like the subtle playmaking tricks that he does. I really liked what we saw offensively overall with the Zion at the 5 minutes.
Yeah, he had another one where, he drove into the paint in a similar way that he always would. And he did kind of like a little hook pass to the corner to Herb. And he drew 3 in the paint. And he knew the whole time that he was going to get bodies. He knew he was passing before he got there.
And my favorite part about that play was Franz Wagner's reaction. He was like, ah! He slid back slid back like 10 feet too.
Yeah. That was, yeah. He was on something with the preseason flopping. He had one. Zion set a pick in the first quarter. That was like, he got there. Maybe he was out a little too far, and Franz like threw his arms all over the place. That was real playoff stuff for preseason game 1. He got the call, man, though.
I mean, how much would they have to pay you to take a charge against Zion Williamson?
I don't know that they're like my medical bills plus my counseling visits for the next 10 years as I work my way back mentally. At least 500 grand would probably need to be $1 million because I'm going to die.
I feel like that could be, if Jackass was still around, like a Jackass skit, like get Steve-O in like catcher's helmet and get him like the protective gear and just let Zion run full speed to him, at the free throw line or something, and just see how far he slides backwards.
Oh yeah, definitely. Johnny Knoxville dressed as a matador with a set of horns on Zion, and Zion goes and runs and hits him and he dies. Yeah, that's perfect stuff.
I mean, one of the most amazing things I've seen Zion do in the NBA was his rookie year when they played the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Zion was 19 years old at the time, and he drove his shoulder into Steven Adams, who, is like a lot of people think is the strongest player in the NBA. And Steven Adams took like 6 steps backwards and, was like basically almost in the stanchion, and Zion just laid it up. I'm like, this guy at 19 years old just bullied the guy who a lot of people think is the strongest player in the NBA. It was, I mean, one of the craziest things I've ever seen Zion do.
Yeah, for me, the first time he ever saw Rudy Gobert, he just saw food. And this was a reigning defensive player of the year, perennial defensive player of the year. And he just jumps into his chest because nobody can handle it. And he knew it. Just to have the balls to do that, to have the stomach to attack guys like that and know you're going to win. I mean, but I guess that's the story of his life in basketball. What can't he do?
So, I mean, Willie Green said on media day, they were going to Zion at the 5. He said again, the first day of training camp, this was going to happen. I mean, it actually did in the first preseason game. Zion's first 4 seasons played 5% of his minutes at center. If you had to predict, like, what do you think that will be this season? Like, what is the breakdown of other positions, power forward and everything else, versus him at center?
I think you want to go percentages of like percent of distribution of position?
Yeah. Like what percent of his minutes if you had to guess, do you think he will play at center this season?
I'm going to go a little, maybe this is, I think this is bold. Maybe this isn't bold. I'm going to say 25. Okay. I think about a quarter of the time, because realistically, there's going to be certain lineups where certain teams you're going to play against where you're not really going to want to do it, but it should be an optimal closing lineup if it's good. If it works
against specific types of teams.
Yeah, against a lot of those very switchy teams, a lot of the switchy shooting teams that don't have traditional bigs, those are really the ones. But you may think a little differently when it's like the Denver Nuggets or something like that. And then I think something we didn't really see a ton of was like Point Zion, and that's probably a lot to do with his conditioning and everything. We'll definitely be seeing that soon too, because just using his gravity, just having another way to use his gravity. But yeah, there's just so much you can do with him. And the biggest thing is it was nice to see, like, we talk a lot about how little we saw those guys on the floor together last year. We saw them for 9 games. We barely saw them play together. And when we saw them together, it was kind of a mess. It was not a mess. It was not a mess at all. Roles were delineated appropriately. The looks people got were good. The pace was great. The shot selection was good. It got distributed pretty well. CJ kind of moved into his actual offensive role, where he was like your third or fourth option, and he was just kind of getting it as it came to him. They had really solid, like, they'd go down the floor, like, felt like once every 5 times they'd go down the floor and it'd just be a post up for JV just to keep him involved, which is what you should be doing. Just like go down, get an easy bucket, get some work. I could not be more thrilled about how that first little bit looked, because I kind of conditioned myself. I was hearing those Willie quotes, and then again in post game where he's like, slight tweaks to the offense. Didn't feel like slight tweaks.
I guess I didn't feel as strongly about like, oh, I feel great about the starters and everything. And that's fine, because it was just, like one game and they haven't played together in 10 months. I don't know. I felt really good about the Zion and center stuff. I just was like a more medium-ish on the starters together. We talked to Jonas Valanciunas today, and we talked we asked him a lot of questions just about spacing in general. And he basically was like, look, I understand there's not really room for both me and Zion on the paint. Like it's on me to space the floor, basically. Like there are going to be times when I have to just park myself in the corner, basically. And we saw that at times in that game. I mean, there was a possession, I tweeted a screenshot of it. I mean, Jonas Valanciunas just standing in the right corner, and, Zion has all that space inside to do his thing. It did not result in a bucket or anything like that, but it's clear they're going to ask JV to take threes when they're there, to space every once in a while. And they're going to ask CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram to take a lot of threes. I mean, Willie Green said at practice today, like, we'd like both those guys be taking 6 to 8 threes. And the threes they generate, they want them to be, we drive and kick, and they're catch and shoot threes more than the pull-up type threes. But yeah, there's a clear emphasis on keeping the floor spaced for everybody, but especially for the big fella.
Yeah, it's so that's why it felt drastic, and that's why I feel so good about the starters. One, it just felt like every time down, a different guy got some run. And then we saw initiation a little bit from everybody. We saw a lot of initiation from Herb, kind of what I was hoping to see from Herb at the start of last season. He looked very, very comfortable in that game in all facets. He looked just whatever crazy adjective that I can manipulate to work Herb's name into, Herbtastic, Herbalicious. I don't know. He looked herbaceous. He looked very herbaceous. BI pulls up for a 3 early clock. Like, when you think about what BI, he misses the 3-point attempt. But when I see that be his first long jumper, he does it in the first 4 seconds of the clock, when he's a guy that normally, if I left it up to him and we didn't have offensive rules in place, he'd probably dribble for 10 or 12 minutes, find himself 12 feet away, and pull up and shoot. That felt drastic to me. Even if it was only one shot, even if he only took 15 total shots, we had 23-point attempts in the first half. It's very clear that the Borrego principles are in place. And although the very, very young backups, because 3 of our backups are not playing, the very, very young backups looked like they were trying to follow the rules, but had no chemistry whatsoever. And it was very messy and looked very much like summer league basketball. The starters looked like they knew where to be, who needed to touch it, and that threes needed to be taken. And that felt very significant to me. It felt very significant that from a pace perspective, the guys who were not shooting the ball were running down the floor. The guys who did not have the ball in both directions were running down the floor to get vertical spacing to see if you can catch a breakdown before a defense gets set. And we talked about a lot of that last year, but we were not a fast team last year.
Yeah, I mean,
this was a huge improvement.
I think you're getting at something there where Willie Green has said a lot during training camp. Look, we emphasized a lot of this stuff last year. We just didn't necessarily execute it. I mean, I think they are doing some different things, definitely, but I feel like James Borrego was brought in. A large part of the reason was to actually implement and execute a lot of the things that Willie Green maybe wanted to, but the Pelicans didn't do exactly what they wanted to last year. Like, I think Willie Green has always wanted to play with ball movement and body movement and things like that. But, you know, I think James Borrego is here to make that come to fruition, basically.
Yeah. That's what it felt like. It felt like Borrego's stamp was on this. It felt organized. It felt principled. And yeah, that's what got me really excited, was because it was like all the things you said you wanted to do last year, they're all clearly doing it. It was messy at times, and like the spacing wasn't perfect and stuff for the starters. It got slogged a couple of times. There were some bad possessions, some turnovers, which you're going to have when you go fast. Like, you're going to have more turnovers. But you could clearly see the imprint, and it just felt like there's like an offensive adult in the room now that just they know what to do in pass spaces where when they kind of got lost in a possession, everybody just kind of went into the basketball they've always played. It didn't look like that. It looked like they stuck to the principles, and they were going to keep sticking to the principles. And if they missed the shot, they missed the shot, but at least they're playing the way that you want them to. So yeah, that felt really, really exciting. I loved hearing from CJ and from other guys that the way Borrego approached this, and this is just like experienced coach, sits down with the offensive guys, comes in with a system, but asks them what they think about their offense and what they think about their fit in his system, and make sure to incorporate that. Like, we hear CJ in post game talking about, like, there are certain shots, like, I love pin downs. I love my elbow pull up, and I'm still going to take those. Like, there clearly is like a threshold for the guys to be themselves within the context of the offense, and Borrego welcomed that from the jump. So nobody feels like the offense is an enemy to their game.
Yeah.
And it just made me really excited to have like Jose and Trey in that. I just want to see it.
I feel like that's just a trait of good leadership. Of, you want to make the guys who are actually doing the thing involved in the process. You want to get their input. They feel like they're valued, and like they're more accountable too. It's like, well, hey, we talked about this. We're doing some of the things you want to too, and maybe it's not going the way we wanted to, but like, we're doing some of the things that you wanted to too. So they're kind of accountable for it as well. One of my other takeaways from this game, I was like, I can't wait to watch Trey in this thing, and Trey with Zion specifically. I mean, I thought that cross-court pass Zion had to Jordan Hawkins was, like one of the plays of the night or whatever. And that just made me think, like, I can't wait to see Zion and Trey specifically play together with some Borrego ball on some small ball units. Those two guys are just meant to play with each other.
I railed a lot the first half of last season about wanting Trey to be more aggressive in his takes from three. He doesn't feel like he's going to need to be that aggressive, because it feels like he is going to get some open looks. There are going to be some wide open threes, like we have dreamt about with him and Zion as a pairing. It feels like he's going to have some wide open 3-point attempts. It feels like he might take 3 like open transition looks a game with the way that looked. If that holds, if what we saw in that dose of game 1 holds and is the actual offense, it feels like there are going to be a lot of threes to go around for Trey and a lot of space to shoot him in. That's immediately where my brain went as soon as the game ends. Like, man, Jose and Trey really fit this really well. And Trey especially, like the stuff that it was interesting hearing how everybody talks about Hawkins already, like hearing Zion talk about Hawkins as if like he did not talk about him as like a rookie who's not going to have a role. it sounded like he was talking about him as like, that's a bona fide shooter. That's a weapon. And if he's open, I got to get him the ball because he's going to knock it down. That's what Trey already is with and a much more physical specimen. So yeah, just
I mean, look, the Pelicans are hoping, like, I mean, I've just had like the Pelicans are hoping Hawkins is ready right from the jump because they know they kind of need it. I mean, there's an understanding that we just don't have that much outside shooting. We're pretty thin in that department. Trey and CJ, I've tweeted out before, combined for 46% of the Pelicans 3-point makes last season. Two dudes, almost half of all the Pelicans 3-point makes. Like there is an opportunity for Jordan Hawkins to play here a little bit off the bench without Trey Murphy. The main question is, I mean, is he going to make shots? Like I'm confident in that in the NBA, but like, can he just hold up defensively? Because he has a pretty small frame, still 21. We saw, I think Cole Anthony tried to bully him a little bit early on. Like that's the thing for him. It's like he just has to show he can stay in front and not get lost and not get bullied, basically.
Speaking of bullied and speaking of Cole Anthony, is Kyra Lewis still from Cole Anthony's drive on the right-hand side? Like I felt terrible watching this. One of my negative takeaways is I am a fan. I am no professional here. I'm a professional fan. My hope for what Kyra can be is like all-time dumps. I feel like gadget point guard, speed guy, whatever ceiling I thought might be there, it just feels like he's too small and like he's going to be too small. Cole Anthony threw him into the audience on a very simple little forearm shiver, and Kyra went flying. And I was just like, man, this is where we still are. It just doesn't feel like things have progressed that much. Anyway, back to Hawkins. He had some rookie troubles. Like we saw some stuff. His shot looked a lot better than in summer league. He looks a little more comfortable there, but he still had like some footwork issues where defender closed out on him when he catches a pass above the arc. He shuffled his feet, catches a travel, had some contact issues, left his hands in there a little too long. Guys taking advantage of him. Typical rookie stuff. I liked what he did at UConn as a defender, even though he is small. I liked him watching driving lanes, watching passing lanes, and using active hands. Like this team is going to live off of that a little bit. So I think he can make up some ground there defensively. But we don't know. Like that's the big question mark with him is he weighs nothing.
Yep. The plan going into Tuesday, per Willie Green, was we want to play the starters, in the ballpark of 20 minutes. They were all between like 15 and 19 minutes. I asked Willie again at practice today, what's the plan moving forward? He said, slowly ramp them up. Like we want to get to 30 minutes by the end. I mean, one of the big differences I think with this season is I think there's just going to be more an emphasis on we have to find ways to play. Like if you think back to last preseason, I feel like last preseason, even though the Pelicans started off the year well, like low-key set the tone in a couple of different ways. Like the starters barely played together. Brandon Ingram didn't even play until the Birmingham game. And I would have to go back and look up what they listed him with. But like the starters didn't even really get reps in the preseason, which seemed kind of insane to me. It's like these guys need to play together. Like they need reps. They have to figure out each other's games. It just seems like there's more of an emphasis. And like, I asked Willie Green about this specifically related to Zion. I was like, what do you think about this Stan Van Gundy, Coach K thing of play him as much as possible? He's like, I think that's true for every basketball player. Like you can lift, you can do cardio, but there is no shape like basketball shape. I think Willie is there. I think he is a believer that you just have to play as much as possible. And it's a mentality thing. And I think we're going to see that this season with Aaron Nelson shipped out to Siberia.
That's kind of a cruel way to put it. He's out in the gulag.
He's not. He's getting. I think he's getting paid like a ton of money to do nothing.
He's getting a handsome. Yeah, he's getting a handsome check to hang out in the gulag. His gulag has fine bearskin rugs and a nice fireplace. He's having a great go he's got a nice little ice fishing deal set up, a little snowmobile. He's getting around fine. Yeah, it can be a little inconvenient in a blizzard, but it's luxurious. He's not wanting for anything. Yeah, look, Paul George, in the offseason said kind of the same thing. Like, I don't actually believe that this, like, all the rest stuff and everything, I don't believe it. I feel like you have to play, and that's the only way to be in shape, blah, 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 which is interesting coming from the Clippers and two players that famously miss a lot of games.
Kawhi Leonard is different, though, because it seems like he has like a degenerative issue in his quad. It's a different case than I think what's gone on with the Pelicans sometimes. And I don't think guys should play when they're injured. Like, I mean, I understand Zion was going to miss a period of games with hamstring injury. Like, that is a very difficult injury to try to come back from. And like, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, but it just felt like more than Zion, multiple players on the team last year were not controlling the things they could have controlled. But I'll just leave it at that.
And clearly, like, you heard it here first. Christian is confident that this team is doing the stuff. They're doing the things. They're going to play a ton of basketball. They're not going to hide from the grind. They're going to get out here. They're going to play.
Don't run from the grind.
They are not going to run from the grind. They're going to play 60-plus games together. We're going to the chip. We're going to the chip. You heard it here first. Preseason game 1. The hype is at an all-time high. I'm gambling again.
That'll be great for you.
I like it for me. Gambling, what could go wrong? Gambling and liquor. My two greatest loves that aren't my son and my wife.
Tomorrow I am driving up to Birmingham, so I will be in attendance at the second preseason game. I was impressed by the Birmingham game last year. It was a great atmosphere. It's really filled in there. They played the Hawks, so it was kind of like Birmingham's this nice, kind of medium point between New Orleans and Atlanta. They're playing the Rockets in their second preseason game. Herb Jones country, man. We're kind of joking around with Jonas Valanciunas after practice today, and he's like, "Herb Jones people, we're going there."
They go into a bit of a cathedral of basketball compared to the Smoothie King Center. Like, a little bit bigger, maybe a little nicer. I'm just saying.
I'm not going to say anything to that. Just going to go read the coverage and the reporting.
I would just say I think the people of Beham are pretty pleased with their arena. And if you happen to go sort, all U.S. arenas by size and date of construction, you'll be surprised where the Beham Arena lands.
One of the things about Birmingham that really struck me was it was walkable, and like the sliver of downtown I was in, it felt very walkable. I walked to the arena. It was so clean. It was like one of the cleanest downtowns I've ever seen in any city. It was like I would eat off this highway underpass. I would do it. If I dropped a hot dog under this highway for 10 seconds, I would still eat this hot dog. It was that clean.
Hey, that is a medical leadership, medical training capital of the Gulf South as well. Little known fact.
I was impressed. I didn't think I would like Birmingham as much as I did when I made that trip. So, I'm excited to do round 2. It is 11 hours of driving for one preseason game, but that's the life I chose, Adam.
Is it the life you chose, or did the life choose you?
I think it might be the latter. And I've got some spots up there too. I've some restaurant recommendations. I got a burger place I'm excited about going. So it should be a good trip. As far as I know, all the Pelicans main players who aren't injured are going to play. I love it. I am a huge proponent of basketball players playing basketball. This might be the number one podcast in America that is pro basketball players playing basketball.
The number one. That's the bold claim. We're let's take it. We're taking it. We're going to start saying it every show.
We are freaking radicalists.
Yes, we are extremists. We believe basketball players should play basketball at all times. There it is. Aggregate that.
All right, man.
Look, while you're in Beham, you're talking about places to eat. Huntsville, not that far away. Blue Oak location 2. Just saying.
I love seeing the New Orleans spots I really like branch out. Shout out to Blue Oak, Banh Mi Boys, which I'm not even being paid to do this. I just love Banh Mi Boys so
No,
much.
we are not paid for this. We just like these places.
Banh Mi Boys is really branching out. They just announced they're going to expand to Dallas. So, when I'm home visiting my folks,
Very exciting for you.
I might have to go get a Bang Bang Shrimp Banh Mi.
Are you like a silent investor? How the hell did you get them to go? Like, you got them to go to Dallas? Like, I feel like they're following you. What's going on here?
Look, a lot of things have not broken my way in the 4 years I've been in New Orleans. I deserve that one.
You've earned it. The housing market, not so much. But hey, Banh Mi Boys in Dallas.
Yeah, the superstar I've strapped myself to. He's struggling to launch, but this might be the season he launches.
It's okay. It is. It is because basketball players are playing basketball this year.
I love it. Coach K, that's why you're the GOAT, man.
That's our episode title right there. Basketball players are playing basketball.
All right, Adam. Well, thanks for doing this, man. We will have a couple preseason games under our belt when we get back together next week. So I think we'll have a lot to chew on, but we're getting there, man. October 25th, 2 weeks away. I will be in Memphis for the season opener. It is a really important year for the Pelicans, and I think they all recognize that, which is encouraging to me. They know how important this is.
I did enjoy the lack of joy shared. It felt very almost militaristic in the media room after the game. I know people don't love post game, but for where we are, it was nice to see the tone, and the tone continued to be throughout the entire time they've been back with the team. Everybody just kind of recognizes that it's put up or shut up.
It's a prove it year, baby. All right, Adam. I'm gonna log off. I'm gonna drive to Birmingham tomorrow. I'm excited to share my Birmingham travel log with you next week.
Very excited about that. Very excited about that.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.